In our lesson today, we're going to have more practice finding the circumference and area of circles. And in number 1 and number 2, it says in each question below, find the radius, diameter, circumference, and area. Leave in terms of pi. So any answers that have pi in it, we're going to leave them in terms of pi. Remember that there are two circumference formulas, c equals pi d if you know the diameter of the circle, or c equals 2 pi r if you know the radius of the circle. And there's only one area formula, a equals pi r squared. So you must know the radius of the circle in order to find the area. Let's take a look at the first circle. Okay, I'm looking at this circle and how it's labeled, and I see that there's a line segment from the center to a point that goes on the circle, which is called the radius. So this is an easy one for me to fill in. The radius, I can see, is 27 centimeters. In order to get the diameter is 2 times the radius. Okay, the diameter goes all the way through the center of the circle. So all we have to do is double that number. If you take 27 and you multiply it by 2, you would get 54 centimeters as the diameter. Okay, and now we're going to calculate the area and the circumference. So let's go ahead and start with the area. And again, the area formula here, a equals pi r squared. So we need to know the radius. Unfortunately, we did. We saw that that was 27 centimeters. So we're going to substitute that value in. A equals pi times 27 squared. Use your order of operations. We're going to have to solve 27 squared first. The exponent goes first. If you do 27 times 27, that's going to give you a equals 729 pi. Okay, 27 squared was 729 times pi. And if you remember up here, it said to leave your answer in terms of pi. So I'm not going to multiply these two together. That's where I'm going to stop. The area is 729 pi, and the units are going to be centimeters squared. Remember that you always square the units if you're finding the area. Now let's find the circumference. C equals, well, again, I've got the radius here, so I'm going to use 2 pi r. C equals 2 pi r. And I'm going to substitute in the value of the radius, which again was 27. Okay, and again, keeping in mind I'm going to leave my answer in terms of pi. In order to get my circumference, all I'm going to do is multiply 27 times 2, which is going to be 54. So C equals 54 pi, and that's where we're going to stop. 54 pi centimeters is the circumference. In example number 2, this time we look at what's labeled, and this line segment starts and ends on the circle, goes through the center. This is the diameter. The diameter is 78 feet. In order to get the radius, remember that the radius is only half of the diameter. So we're going to take this value and we're going to divide it by 2. 78 divided by 2 is 39 feet for the radius. Now we can use that value and calculate the area. A equals pi r squared. The radius we just found to be 39, so A equals pi times 39 squared. And again, evaluate the exponent first. 39 squared, 39 times 39. That's 1,521 times pi, and that's our answer, leaving it in terms of pi. 1,521 pi feet squared. For the circumference, C equals, I know the diameter, so I'm going to use pi d. C equals pi d. And all you need to do is substitute in that value. All right, well, the diameter is 78, pi times 78. And there's nothing left to do. We're going to leave our answer in terms of pi. So right here, the circumference is 78 pi feet. In the next 2 examples, we're going to find the area when we're given the circumference of the circle. If you look at both circles in 3 and 4, notice that there's nothing labeled on there. I don't know the radius, I don't know the diameter, but the circumference has been given in each case. I have to be able to go from the circumference all the way to the area. Okay, and knowing my area formula, A equals pi r squared, the first thing that I'm going to have to do is figure out what's the value of the radius. So the first thing we're going to do is use the circumference formula to get to the radius. Once we know the radius, then we can use that to get the area of the circle. Okay, so let's start with the circumference formula that uses radius. That's C equals 2 pi r. And again, I'm trying to figure out the value of the radius. They gave me the circumference as 38 pi centimeters. So I'm going to substitute this value in for C. 38 pi equals 2 pi r. Okay, so let's see if we can get r by itself. Let's start by dividing by pi. Remember that pi is a number, 3.14159 and so on. Okay, any number divided by itself equals 1. So they're going to simplify on the left. Those are going to simplify on the right. So 38 equals 2r. And to get r by itself, now all we're going to do is divide each side by 2. Okay, when we do that, on the right-hand side, 2r divided by 2 is r. And on the left, if you do 38 divided by 2, you get 19. So I now know that the radius of my circle is 19 centimeters. This is the value that we're going to use to find the area. The area formula, A equals pi r squared. And I'm going to substitute in the radius, which I just found to be 19. A equals pi times 19 squared. Using order of operations, we'll do 19 to the second power. 19 times 19. Well, that's 361 pi. Okay, 361 pi is the area. Now, the directions here say to round your answer to the nearest tenth. So I'm actually going to do 361 times pi using my calculator. So when we punch that in, 361 times pi, remember, we're going to write out all of those decimals on our paper first. We get 1,134 and 114,948. Okay, now that we've got our decimal, we're going to round it to the nearest tenth. So the area is approximately 1,134 and, well, that looks like 1/10. The 1 in the hundredths place doesn't round us up, so we're going to keep 1/10. And that's what we can fill in here, 1,134 and 1/10 centimeters squared. In example 4, we're going to do something similar. We've started with the circumference. We need to use that to find out the radius in order to get to the area of the circle. So again, we're going to use C equals 2 pi r to start. The circumference is 28 pi. Substitute that in for C. 28 pi equals 2 pi r. And now we're going to get the value of r. Let's start by dividing both sides by pi. And again, pi divided by pi is 1. Pi divided by pi is 1. So 28 equals 2r. And then if you divide each side by 2, on the right that gets r all by itself. 28 divided by 2 is 14. So I now know that the radius is 14 feet. This is the value that we can use to get the area. A equals pi r squared. Okay, substitute in the value of r. We just found out that the radius is 14 feet. And now use your order of operations. We'll do the exponent before we multiply. 14 squared, 14 times 14, that's 196. And then times pi. Since again, we're going to round our decimal, we have to multiply 196 by pi. So let's punch that into our calculator. And again, we're going to write out all of those decimals. So we're going to get 615 and 7521601. And now we can round our decimal to the nearest tenth, approximately 615 and. We have 7/10, but there's a 5 in the hundredths place, which will round us up to 8/10. So that's going to give us an area of 615 and 8/10 square feet. In the next examples, it says round all answers to the nearest thousandth. So what we're going to do, notice this time the circumference isn't in terms of pi, it's a decimal, 194 and 7/10. Our process is still going to be the same. We have to use this to get to the radius, and then use the radius to get to the area. So we're going to start with the circumference formula. Again, c equals 2 pi r. We need that one because we're looking for the radius. And we're going to substitute this value in for c. The circumference was 194 and 7/10, and that equals 2 pi r. And again, we have to get r all by itself. So this time I'm going to start, because it's not in terms of pi, I'm going to start by dividing each side by 2. Okay, on the right, 2 divided by 2 is 1, so we're left with pi times r. 194 and 7/10 divided by 2 is 97 and 35/100. Okay. Now we have to get r all by itself, so in order to do that, we have to divide each side by pi. Okay, well on the right, pi divided by pi, that simplifies to a 1. And I'm just going to write this over here where I've got more space. So on the right-hand side, I have r. And now I'm going to use my calculator, and I'm going to punch this in, 97 and 35/100 divided by pi. And I'm going to write out all of those decimals. Okay, so for r, the radius, we're going to get 30 and 98746 742. Okay, and this is the value of r, equals r. And now, with the directions it's telling me to round to the nearest thousandth, I'm going to say that r is approximately 30 and, well, it looks like 987 thousandths. The next digit 4 is not enough to round us up, so we'll use 987 thousandths. 30 and 987 thousandths feet is our radius. This number is the number that we're going to use to find the area of the circle. So we're going to use the area formula, and again, I'll do that up here where I've got some more space. A equals pi r squared. We're going to use this value of r, the radius, to substitute in. A equals pi times 30 and 987 thousandths squared. Okay, and now we're going to punch that into our calculator. So 30 and 987 thousandths, and that is the squared button, equals, I'm going to write out all those digits again. Okay, so let's write this out. 960 and 194169 times pi. Don't forget, we have that times pi. So now I'm going to keep that number on my screen, and I'm just going to hit times pi, and there is my number. Okay, so A equals, let's write out all of those digits, 3016 and 538947. Okay, and now I'll take this number and I'll round it to the nearest thousandth. A is approximately 3016 and it looks like 538 thousandths, but that 9 will round us up to 539 thousandths. 3016 and 539 thousandths square feet is your area. In number 9, they tell us the circumference of a circular sheet is 72 2/10 yards. Find the area. Round your final answer to the nearest hundredth. Not all answers, just your final answer. So we'll start with the circumference formula. C equals 2 pi r. And we're going to substitute in the circumference. 72 2/10 equals 2 pi r. So let's get the radius. So now that we've got our radius, okay, this value here is what we're going to use to find the area. So A equals pi r squared, and we're going to substitute this entire decimal in, 11 and 49098689 squared. Okay, so let's use this now to find the area. Okay, so the first thing we would have to do is square this number here, which gives us 132.0427797. Then you multiply by pi, which gives us this long decimal, and rounded to the nearest hundredth, 414 and 82 hundredths square yards.